the one you're seeing on stage, and then they just get, they come off in layers, little poppers, and then it'll come on and off over your head.
Unfortunately, you need to have a very good head for figures. That's a very big part of the job, budgeting it all. If you're making a period costume, head to toe, you used to budget £1,000 a costume. You're not going to get very much for that these days.
How much is that?
Shoes, underwear, just mounts up. Underwear, usually we kind of, rule of thumb, if it's not seen, we don't provide it, but the underwear has to be the right shape. You're problem solving the whole time. And I think you need to be able to solve the problem as quickly as possible, or at least address it and think, well, I can't afford to have this made, so where do I go?
Why don't you go where fashion sits, putting on the Ritz?
It's really exciting when you go into a second-hand place and you think, oh my God, that's the right dress for that character. But what looks great in the street doesn't necessarily look great on stage.
Putting on the Ritz.
I love the moment when it all comes together on stage for the first time, although that's all slightly scary because things might not be ready, might not be finished. With musicals, they are ferociously hard work. It's just like a snowball rolling down a mountain. It gathers momentum and you just got to keep going with it. But they're addictive, I'm afraid.
Putting on the Ritz. Putting on the Ritz.
Another wonder tomorrow. Have you the eye and the energy to clad a cast of a West End musical? Well, to hear how one costume buyer does it, go to channel4.com/musicality.
Dispatches investigates who is looking after Britain's most vulnerable children and asks why are agencies supplying some homes with untrained, unvetted carers. And who is making thousands of pounds profit by running them? Channel 4 exposes a system that has turned children in care into a money-making scheme. Dispatches, profiting from kids in care. Thursday at 9 on 4.
When the pressure's on, it's all about finding the ideal partner.
I think it's about time you settle down.
3 British Asians search for their Mr. or Mrs. Right. There's only one criteria: they must be Asian.
I've never actually dated an Asian man.
You just don't get to meet them.
It's not through lack of trying.
I Won't Marry Whites, tonight at 11 on 4.
Dr. David Starkey brings the story of the monarchy to the deeply divisive and decisive War of the Roses at 9. First, the complete opposite, dealing with conflict in the Haven.
On the remote northeast coast of Scotland, the Findhorn spiritual community has for more than 40 years provided a haven for alternative ways of living.
Love the person in front. Just love them a little bit. Pleasure. Just feel free.
They don't have a single religion.
If I look at a modern-day Christian ritual, and I was a choir boy and an altar boy, as far as I'm concerned, it's shamanic.
Their founder isn't sure why anyone came in the first place.
If I thought it was going to grow as big as it is now, I probably would have run away from it all.
And their very future is in question.
If people are even thinking for a second that we might fall apart when she dies, then she's not been a very good teacher.
But it's not all peace and love.
Yeah. So sometimes I just want to say, like, off, Just feel like, off.
And they're as down-to-earth as you or I.
Any family is dysfunctional at one level, and we are a family. So at one level, there are dysfunctionalities like everywhere else.
So what makes Findhorn one of the most successful alternative communities in the world? More than 14,000 people a year from around the world come to Findhorn, attracted by its way of life and the teachings of Eileen Caddy.
Come in. Watch the steps.
86-year-old Eileen is one of the 3 original founders of the community.
I embody the energy of love, light, wisdom, compassion, all these energies I have to embody. And this is what I've been doing over the years, just living it, being it.
They have no single religion, but believe everyone can communicate directly with plants, animals and God.
Yeah, just being one with the tree.
Anybody can do it. It's a question of learning to be still and going within and finding that place of stillness, which to me is the God center.
The door closed so that it's self-contained.
Just over 40 years ago, Eileen and her late husband towed their caravan into the sand dunes near the remote fishing village of Findhorn and claimed God told them to live there. In the 60s, hippies and eccentrics came from all over the world, and with guidance from God through Eileen, they built a community.
I was told in guidance that thousands upon thousands of people would come here. And I thought, why in the world would they want to come to this dump of a place? But that's exactly what's happened.
The 14,000 visitors every year provide 90% of the community's income. They pay for a week-long initiation to a 6-month stay. But they're also put to work, cleaning, gardening, or preparing communal meals. Daisy from Holland and Thomas from Hertfordshire look after the visitors in the community kitchens.
Yeah, and it went, eh? So everybody, let's come here together and we make a circle.
They teach visitors that work in Findhorn is considered love in action and to openly share their feelings with each other.
Thanks for cooking together.
Let's cook. Thank you.
So be aware of your hands, wash your hands. Let's be aware of the pot wash, that we don't create a mountain.
Aprons.
And the aprons, there are a few aprons there and a few aprons here in the, we want to be 100% organic, but we're not on the moment. Yeah, it's a big passion of us. We want to be as organic as possible. We may be like, sometimes we're 80% organic, sometimes we 60%, but yeah, it would be fantastic to be 100%. Yeah.
Like all permanent staff members, Daisy and Thomas get £200 a month and free board and lodgings.
You know, we do that for the Italians.
Thomas gave up a career as a dentist 10 years ago to live in the community. But he doesn't see himself as a hippie.
Some people do think of us as like a little bit weird and can't really, a little bit scared of us maybe, and think we're a sect or something, and you know, just don't understand us, and they stereotype us as being hippies and, you know, people down on the funny farm a bit.
Is everybody okay?
Days, it's tea break time.
Oh, is it? Oh, it's the... Yes, I was a little bit distracted. Dear people, it's tea break time.
Thomas and Daisy cater for up to 250 people twice a day and have to look after visitors in the kitchens.
You have to juggle and you have to be quite sensitive and balance all the time. And you know, I can't do all the time my thing. You know, we also try to be very democratic in the kitchen. And that's one of the things we find really important. That means that everybody in the kitchen has a voice, you know.
It's not just the food, it's also the guests, it's the team members, how everyone's doing. And I think that really adds to the stress in a certain way, you know.
And the stress in the kitchen has reached boiling point. Gordon, one of the staff, has upset some of the visitors. He's lost his temper and stabbed a chopping board.
Nothing gets a party going like Ferrero Rocher. The unique taste is simply bliss. Share the magic of Ferrero Rocher.
Recycled newspapers can be used to make high-quality surfaces for racetracks and roads, or they could become new newspapers. Recycle! The possibilities are endless.
Nivea Hand Age-Defying Q10 Plus gives you hands to feel proud of by helping to reduce the early signs of aging. So the next time you're getting ready to face the world, don't forget to care for your hands. Age-Defying Q10 Plus from Nivea Hand.
1, 2, 3, 4. There's nothing accidental about good composing.
Howard Goodall's 20th Century Greats starts with Lennon and McCartney, Saturday at 7 on 4.
In the Findhorn alternative community in the northeast of Scotland, visitors come to experience a peaceful and cooperative way of life. But in the kitchens there's a problem. One of the cooks lost his temper and stabbed a chopping board, scaring some of the visitors.
We are sort of in the hospitality industry and kind of, and we have to sort of be welcoming and open towards the guests, and that can be difficult when you're getting new guests coming through week after week after week, and quite often you might not feel very welcoming.
To address the issue, Thomas has called in a special Findhorn conflict facilitator.
It would be a good thing maybe to look at today, and maybe I can help with what's the step.
Anna must first get the kitchen staff to confront the problem.
There was an incident where some guests were a little bit upset, and it was around like how anger is expressed.
We all have different styles of being and different styles of communicating. So that's one of the basic things that we work a lot in supervision, is helping people to really feel like they have a voice in the team and that they can really express what they need to express. And it's been extremely helpful to prevent difficult situations to getting really bad.
But Gordon, the angry cook, may not be sacked or even reprimanded. Instead, they start with some meditation and a group massage.
To turn here and just love the person in front. Just love them a little bit. Pleasure, just feel free.
And once they're nicely relaxed, Gordon has some explaining to do.
I got really angry, and I shouted, you or something. And then I just stood there watching, I felt the anger rising in me. I took up the knife and I stabbed the chopping board. It's like, your fault!
Good for you, Gordon, that you express yourself, and I know you, and I know that you take care of yourself and your environment, so I feel, and I know that you sometimes just have to scream or just have to do, and then you're kind of better.
Whenever we express any very intense emotion and it takes us over a little bit, I mean, I think it depends on our level of inner skill in the moment.
In this case, Gordon, I don't know if it was appropriate to stab the board exactly.
Well, I had the awareness that, I expressed my anger on a chopping board, a plastic chopping board. That's why I chose to express it. So, I had the awareness to do that.
That's a very interesting thing to kind of think about, that you are a team and that role passes around. So it's a very interesting thought to say, okay, Gordon is just lost a little bit of that moment in that second. I'm just going to come in and check in with him.
I actually feel very much that I would have liked support in that situation. Nobody did that, and I'm not, blaming, but it would be really nice if someone had done it.
Yeah, it's another extra task on the whole list we already do.
It's a skill. I think it's a skill. It's a skill that to know that in those moments safety gets a bit broken in all of us, because we all have experiences where we've been shocked by difficult moments. So if you even just noticing that. Saying even whatever, if you cannot think about the right words to say, it's like, or just whatever, saying, oh, la la, how are people doing? Anything, it just helps.
So in the end, it's good to express your anger, as long as everyone gets a chance to talk about it.
If you express your anger, people, even though you do it in a non-threatening way, people will feel threatened. I've been here 2 years and I've seen it Time and again, it's really worked. It's really people have been like starting to build up some resentment towards each other, and then when they get the chance to talk about it, it all kind of dissolves, and they understand each other better, and it's just beautiful when that happens.
The universe rejoices in your choice.
Of course, we are a center, a spiritual community, a center of demonstration, an educational center, and we try to live the best we can live, but we are not perfect.
We do lose it sometimes, and we definitely aren't loving all the time, you know, but at least we're trying.
You have chosen a higher road.
Any family is dysfunctional at one level, and we are a family. So at one level there are dysfunctionalities like everywhere else.
Let love reign. Let love reign.
Deborah and her husband, Carl J. Lewin, brought their family to the community 10 years ago. They built an experimental eco-house out of bales of straw and decided to raise their family the Findhorn way. But they too are getting stressed with visitors to the community.
Well, I don't know if I know who any of those people heading this way are. In the summer, when there's tours like 4 or 5 times a week, sometimes it's really intense living here. I have very little privacy, and it drives me up the wall.
As we had the house built, it was a bit of a tip. It still looked a bit like a building site. And apparently some of the guests started complaining that it didn't live up to their ideas and expectations of the Findhorn garden.
I'm living slap bang in one of the most unusual houses in the centre of the park in community. So obviously solitude is not so high up on my list. If it was, I'd be living somewhere else. I'd be living out in a field in a little 3-bedroom stone cottage, which I do fantasise about sometimes.
This weekend, Deborah's mother and sister are coming to celebrate the Jewish Sabbath. Deborah's Jewish faith, like all religions, is welcomed in Findhorn.
Is that someone crying? No, just happiness.
Her mother Susan and sister Julia have been coming to terms with Deborah's alternative way of life.
First morning I was here, my dad called me on my cell phone and he said, "So, how is it?" And I said, "Well, they're a little hairy and a little dirty, but overall, they're still nice people." All right, this is my room. Oh, goodness me, Kayla's already been...
Julia's become a .com company director in California.
I had no idea what to expect. And I'm just very self-conscious about the way I dress versus the way people here dress. Do I wear makeup in the morning? And people don't wear makeup here, and I shave under my arms, and other women don't shave here. They've all got hairy legs and hairy underarms, and how's that going to be? And just sort of wondering about all these differences.
We bought the biggest salmon today that I've ever actually seen in a fish market.
Mother Susan was worried Deborah would give up her Jewish faith.
And I think I did worry that maybe it would, well, she would just lose it. And for a while it looked as if that was actually what was happening. But in recent years, I think probably since she's had the children, it seems to have come back into more of a focus for her, to create a sense of Jewish family life within this wider community.
I have a mixed feeling about how much I want to observe my Judaism. So it's very much in me and something that I love and I carry with me, but in terms of how much I want to observe it and which aspects of it I want to observe, changes. And that was fine for me, but then I realised I had children, and because I'd also married someone who's not Jewish, I suddenly realised that it was down to me, if I wanted them to have any Jewish observance at all, that was going to be up to me to carry that on. I've chosen to live in a spiritual community rather than a Jewish community. And that was a definite choice that I made. So in doing that, I am to some degree alienated and isolated from my Jewish religion, and sometimes that feels really difficult and I really miss it.
Deborah has created connections here where she celebrates her Judaism, and in fact sometimes I think she's the kind of unofficial rabbi in the Findhorn community, because she tends to gather people together over the Jewish festivals, and sometimes they have informal services together, and sometimes I come up for those. What I've got here comes out the suitcase is a rather battered holler, which is I've brought out from London, which is the bread we eat on Friday night for the Shabbat meal. I must say I'm rather ashamed of the way this looks, coming straight out my suitcase. So that's for our Shabbat dinner on Friday night, together with some bagels.
I love setting the table and getting out my grandmother's cutlery and putting a white tablecloth out. Like, that's all part of what I love about when I do celebrate Shabbat.
Craig Gibson, a community elder, grew up a Christian and spent 3 years in a Buddhist community before discovering Findhorn's brand of spirituality back in the 60s.
It was just far out. It was weird in the sense that these were what I would call normal middle-aged people, but the whole conversations were around devas and fairies, nature spirits, cooperation with nature, the Western mystery school tradition, flying saucers, etc., etc. It was totally outlandish. And very, very friendly and loving. It was a great space to be in.
Like many who came here, Craig has rejected the fundamental beliefs of traditional religions. Behind his house, he's built a special earth lodge for shamanic-style rituals.
An earth lodge is a name that I made up to give this structure a name. But basically it's modelled on sort of an indigenous meeting space. It's a place where you can have a fire, you can sing and dance and drum, alongside of all the other sort of sacred spaces in the community. Everything is sacred, of course. This whole area here, the trees and everything, and behind it a sweat lodge, is dedicated to the ancestors. And that's the ancient peoples who first lived here 10,000 years ago as the ice retreated. And then our ancestors. Peter Caddy's ashes are here. Many of the people who have died have remains here. And we also have a little place just in the back over there called Placenta Park. So we actually bury the placentas of many of the children that are here and plant a tree on top. So this is a place of memory. It's a pretty rustic space. We've had marriages in here, we've had christenings in here. We even had a coffin in here at one point where one of the guys who died, we built his coffin and placed it here, and we came in and had a sort of a wake, put a few things to drink on top of his coffin.
For Craig, all religions are the same.
If I look at a modern day Christian ritual, and I was a choir boy and an altar boy, as far as I'm concerned, it's shamanic. You're taking the blood of Christ and the body of Christ, which were originally the body of the earth and the blood of the earth. I mean, we've adapted, and, excuse me, reverence to all religions, but every religion is based on and taken from traditional sources. And lighting candles and walking around and making incantations and all those things, well, it's shamanic. Heaven forbid.
Lord of all creation, you have made us the masters of your world, to tend it, to serve it, and to enjoy it.
Deborah and Carl have found a mix of spirituality and traditional religion that suits them.
And the imagined burdens of our task.
At Findhorn here, everyone's pretty open. I mean, you can come out with all kind of wacky, weird and wonderful stories and experiences, and the way that you relate to life and people and spirituality, and people will pretty much accept you.
Whenever I go to the essence of any one thing, whether it's a shamanic ritual or whether it's a traditional religion, you get down to it. And at the core of it is this will to good. There is this sense that there is a unifying field of well-being, of nurturing.
Blessed are you, creator of the universe, who creates the fruit of the vine. That's what that was all about.
Craig and I have spoken. Hey. Oh.
Good afternoon.
The Findhorn community are facing a crisis. Mari Hollander, boss of the Findhorn Foundation, has heard their ageing founder, Eileen Caddy, is seriously ill.
After the excruciating pain which left her almost immobilized, the pain has diminished, but her strength was completely gone. So it took every kind of assistance that you can imagine. You know, basically has osteoporosis in the spine, and her vertebrae will shift around, and it's, you know how it is when you're stiff and achy. So we're still looking for a way to manage what she's got.
As a trained nurse,
yes.
Mari wants to take a week off as the boss to look after Eileen.
If you really feel like you want to do that, then that's the thing to do.
Yeah, I really want it done well,
yes.
And I know I do it pretty well.
You do it very well.
So if I'm the best candidate, then I want to do it. Well, thank you for your support. Yeah, it's quite a privilege.
The discussion of Eileen's illness has brought up the inevitable and difficult question of her death.
Wondering still is, how do we prepare us as individuals and as the community in letting go of her?
Well, actually, what do we do in the moment? You know, do we all go to the hall? Do we take everybody there? Do we take the guests? You know, so I think it would be
yeah, it would be good.
Good to know. So when it does happen,
I don't think she wants to be ushered out any quicker than. No, it's a dance. Yes, it's an inner dance to just. And so where I think what she writes and what I think also, you know, is the high, you know, the just, you know, give it over and in love and in joy and in surrender and see that what happens is for the best. And then she has very clear paperwork about how she would like to be celebrated when she passes. We all do pass, and it's very simple, it's very beautiful, it's very eloquent. So we will follow her instructions, and you know, no doubt people will, we will grieve, but it's more about us than about her. So about her, she would like to be celebrated, and she would like to see it as a joyous next adventure, and I would like us to be in a position to fulfill her wishes.
HP Photosmart cameras and printers. It's now brilliantly simple to click, print, invent.
Couldn't fit into the dress then, madam.
Dress? Oh, I couldn't fit into the changing room. Cow.
We all need a PG moment.
Premier Cru champagne. There's no better noise at Christmas than the sound of that cork popping. Apart from that one. Tesco. Every little helps.
The past 50 years have given British cinema goers an abundance of great films. Now, for the very first time, we unveil the 100 most successful films shown in UK cinemas. What would be your ultimate film? Start Saturday at 9 on 4.
The community has faced many ups and downs in its 40 years, including near bankruptcy. But now it's facing a major turning point. Eileen Caddy, who founded the community in 1962, has been taken seriously ill.
I deeply love Eileen. I mean, none of us would be having a happy life here, a challenging life, a fruitful life, a fulfilling life here, if she hadn't stuck the course all those years.
Mari Hollander, boss of the Findhorn Foundation, has decided to move in and look after Eileen.
She worked really hard, really long, you know, keeping the guidance together, keeping the community together, keeping the kitchen together, raising her own family, all of that, for years and years and years and years and years. So it just seems sort of a simple equation. I'll miss her, we'll miss her, we'll manage or we won't manage. What happens, happens. I mean, we can pray for a lot of grace that when she or anybody else needs to let go and release and move on, pass over, as they say, die, that we'll all manage as best we can.
Some folks travel fancy, some folks travel plain, some folks travel on horseback, and others take the train. And here we go.
For community elder Craig and the rest of Findhorn, life must go on as normal.
Okay, open up.
This morning, Craig's keeping the children's spirits up on the way to the local Steiner school.
No farting, Benya. When I was little, I wanted to grow up to be the bus driver because the bus driver was my hero. And that was what I was going to be.
Now independently run, the Steiner School was set up by the community in the 80s. Its education has a holistic approach and includes spiritual development.
I would have loved to have gone to a Steiner school. Oh, I was classified as being uneducatable. I was a slow learner and I was put in special grades because they didn't know what was wrong with me. But now I've been diagnosed as being a dyslexic, but it's a bit late.
Craig sees Findhorn community life as a traditional education in itself.
It takes a village to educate a child. That type of social bonding and the relationship to the land and the human scale and the children being treated as individuals and participating in all of the different aspects of life. It helps them basically, eventually, to be more socially responsible. I am going to have to truck if I'm going to make my morning meditation. Here we go.
For the adults in the community, 8:35 every morning is meditation time in the sanctuary. But if that's not your cup of herbal tea, you can create your own spiritual practice. In her caravan in the woods, Daisy, the community chef, likes to dance and chant life-affirming messages.
All I need is inside of me. I work a lot with my breath, you know, so it's like, you know, I choose love, so I sometimes I can become really emotional, you know, when I'm dancing, like getting, you know, and that is good, you know, how more I cry, how better I feel, basically, when I get things out of my system and when I cry, you know, that is really, I release stuff, you know. Joy. One of the first affirmations I worked with is like, all I need is inside of me, and that was basically made me lesser needy or lesser lonely, or, you know, and much more depending on myself. I release my anger, or I release my pain. With my affirmations help me. They give me really good energy. They often really lift me up. They also can make me emotional and really to be aware of stuff, of painful stuff, for instance, what is going on for me on the moment. But it helps me to, it just helps me. And it helps me to feel happier, basically. I think that is a really important one. It's be in the now. And I actually just focused on now, then everything is fine. Come, I'll show you others. Be with a tree. Maybe it's like this new age kind of, a little bit of you like that kind of feeling, but do it. You know, I really encourage you to just to do it sometimes, just to kind of to be with a tree, because it's incredibly. When you really do that, it's really really special. So.
Her friend Thomas gave up transcendental meditation in his 20s.
How are you?
I'm okay. I will have bacon since a really long time.
Now 42, he doesn't have a spiritual practice.
We argue as our common spiritual practice, do we not? We argue with awareness. But I think the main thing that's stopping me from having a regular practice at the moment, which I don't really have, is lack of discipline. Lack of self-discipline. And laziness, as Daisy would say.
Okay.
Hey, wait.
Huh? Huh?
Are you in a hurry?
A little bit.
Oh, okay.
Was it too? I can walk. What are you going to do there today?
Today, Thomas is faced with a dilemma in the kitchen stores.
We have had a mouse in here. We've had several mice.
To live in harmony with nature sometimes requires a degree of ingenuity.
I have developed a mousetrap. What happens is, the mouse walks up there, goes in there, peanut butter on the end here, goes up there, falls in, and falls in there. Water for it, nuts, and bedding. And I caught one.
He's also tried talking to the mice. In Findhorn, many believe they can communicate with nature spirits or devas.
The founders of the place could, in meditation, contact the devas and actually ask the mice to go away. So we try to do that when we have problem with mice and stuff like that. It never seems to quite work.
Thomas's family can't believe he gave up his career as a dentist.
My dad basically can't understand what the hell I'm doing here. He just can't understand why I'd want to live here in more or less poverty without much sort of career prospects or you know, financial security. He just cannot relate to that at all. And I think my mum understands more why I would want to do this, but my dad just doesn't, and I find that difficult, I suppose.
Did you already tell that the mouse died?
No, I didn't. I didn't.
It lived for...
It lived for quite a long time. No, it lived for half a day.
And then it died. Oh,
and then it died.
Yeah.
We think that was because it didn't have any bedding at that time. So it's now got bedding. And yeah, and the next one then escaped. And since then I haven't actually been very lucky with my mousetrap.
Thomas is great with animals. Huh? Oh. Oh.
Go back to your cooking.
After Craig's usual morning routine, he's going to visit his ailing friend and founder of the community, Eileen Caddy.
I start my day looking after my kids. They're the younger generations, the new generations. And then I move to the next place where I go and sit and be with some of the oldest members of the community, one of the founders, Eileen Caddy, who is coming close to time of departure. And just to sit with her, hold her hand, and say what a beautiful day it is outside. Community is a place where people are born in it and people die in it. And we take responsibility for bringing our children into the world and also burying our elders. And then you really do get a sense of the fullness of your own life. For one thing, Eileen will definitely pass away. There's no question about that. I don't think, of course we will be sad, but we'll also be happy. And I can only actually feel that when she does go, we will actually step into something more of ourselves and more vibrant and alive. And then when I go and when everybody else goes, we'll just keep changing. It'll only just keep... If it's dependent on one person or it's dependent on maintaining a dogma or a belief system, then it could be traumatic. But we're not dependent like that. And basically, I think it will be a liberation for everyone. So I can only see it being a more fulfilling, happy time than a tragic one, and that we'll lose something. Nothing is lost.
To you we sing, to you this we bring, to celebrate your birth, an angel here on earth.
Today is Eileen's 87th birthday.
And happiness we bring, to celebrate your birth, an angel here on earth. What I would suggest that we just have a moment of silence and just honor Eileen.
Some of the community members have organised a birthday party and they've made Eileen a cake.
Yeah, it's a little sad that she's not very well. It's more the gesture or this kind of this thought that we want to celebrate her and show our appreciation, because without her, we wouldn't be here either. So, sorry.
While they celebrate Eileen's life, the community's council have convened to discuss their future without her.
She had a spasm 4 o'clock this morning, and she's knocked out with morphine for 12, 24 hours. So she's pretty poorly. That's on top of everything else.
Well, she might not die soon, we don't know, but she's definitely frail and not in good health anymore, and we don't know how long she will stay with us.
It's quite difficult to talk about Eileen's mortality and coming to terms with what do we do when Eileen has died. You know, I look around our community and think, well, who is there to step into that role? And to be honest, I don't see someone who is like an obvious successor who can just like take it on as like this is their mantle.
In a sense, the community was created by God through the founders, and whether it's God's purpose for the community to continue, maybe it isn't. And I'm sure if it's her purpose that we continue, then he will make all provision that's necessary for it to happen. And I think that's the important thing to hold on to.
But not everyone feels the same.
I feel a little bit irreverent, actually, which feels a bit edgy. I didn't come here because of Eileen Caddy. I had never heard of her when I came here. Maybe I'm totally naive, but my basic sense is, I don't know, she's our centre and she's not our centre. I feel like we're not dependent on
Council member Yvonne is upset by the community's reliance on Eileen.
You know, 42 years on, yeah, I don't think it will fall apart when she dies.
I was feeling really uncomfortable with the amount of respect being given to her. I mean, she was our founder, she's a fantastic woman. I have no problem with all of that, but I really think that if people are even thinking for a second that we might fall apart when she dies, then she's not been a very good teacher. Her teaching was about us standing in our spiritual power, each connected with the universe, and if we can't do that, then she failed as a teacher. And I know she didn't actually. I have no doubts at all that we will go forward very strongly as a community. And if we fell apart, then what on earth have we been playing at for the last 42 years?
At the end of their meeting, to keep their disheartened spirits from falling apart, some salsa dancing.
Life is great and life is fine, 'cause I met a girl and no one likes you.
You know, we've got so much in common. We like eating, drinking, yoga. Yoga? Shh. I'd like to go to a yoga class. I see myself as more of an intermediate, actually. A bunch of ladies going, how hard can it be?
Don't forget to breathe.
That's chiropractors. CHIRO.
Uncle Ben's Tikka Masala sauce. Inspiration from around the world.
Come on, you know you can't have the fantasy, but you can choose some great options. Mint Madness, outrageous orange.
When the pressure's on, it's all about finding the ideal partner.
I think it's about time you settled down.
3 British Asians search for their Mr. or Mrs. Right. There's only one criteria: they must be Asian.
I've never actually dated an Asian man.
You just don't get to meet them.
It's not through lack of trying.
I Won't Marry Whites, tonight at 11 on 4.
It's late summer and the Findhorn community are having a barbecue.
Kezia, yeah? I want to ask you a question. I want to know, do you like living here?
Carl and Deborah J. Lewin believe they've found the perfect family life.
You don't know?
What do you like about living
What do you like living here?
Like today?
Playing here.
Playing here.
Mama, you know that boy over there?
Yeah.
Not Kevin, but that boy, his name's Hector. And he's friends with Hayden. He's a new next door neighbour.
That's right, and he's going to be at the Steiner School.
The focus of the Findhorn Foundation is an adult education centre. And so the children and families weren't so much of a priority. And now with the developing eco-village and the community, there's many more families here, there's more people who are coming here to settle and to live and to bring their children up. It's a brilliant place to bring up children. What this community does for us as a family is it substitutes extended family, which is not around us because we've chosen to live away from them.
Grass fight!
It's a pretty good place. I don't know about perfect. It's got its challenges.
I don't think there is perfect, and I can't think of much better. I guess I can put it like that. Yeah, it's pretty good.
medium cubes. You see? Maybe you have like a few cuts, you know, like this.
Right, okay, so all in cubes.
Yeah, cooking is a little bit like making love. And you have the warming up and the foreplay. And
For Daisy, the head chef, living and working in the Findhorn community can be a challenge.
I love to be here, you know. I'm very passionate about this community. I love, you know, I was never so happy than my time here, you know. And you know, I love it's a magical place, and I do feel we are a light center and put little sparkles of lights into the world, you know. And I think sometimes it's hard for people who are here for a while and they have responsibility and they carry like a big chunk of something. I think sometimes it can be tough. Or I'm also kind of just human, you know, and sometimes I just had enough of it. Sometimes I just want to say like off, you know, just feel like off, you know, leave me alone. It's like so it's just balancing. Eh? Yeah. Now the curry is not doing too bad. Yeah, great. Thank you.
Findhorn is part of a new wave. New age, every day's a new day, you know. But there's some sort of new wave thing happening. There's some sort of coming together, a realization that we humans are all on the same planet and the same space.
Craig believes Findhorn's philosophies could be the answer to the world's problems.
Fundamentalism and dogma, they're our greatest challenges. But that could be the same. You know, a fundamentalist economist is just as deadly as a fundamental Christian or a fundamental Muslim because they refuse to allow the other in. The other being, whether it's the other communities of life or the other attitude, the other sides of the argument, you could say. So if you keep shutting all of those things out, then you're going to end up in a box. And I feel for people who wish to live that way, and I don't want to change them, but I would like to create the space where we could even listen to one another.
Good. It can work, it can work. Great. Queuing up. Hello. I'm good, how about you?
Wonderful.
Working hard?
Yeah.
After a week of round-the-clock care by ex-nurse Mari Hollander and the community carers, their founder, Eileen, is out of danger.
I mean, I was really afraid after the back spasm last week that she would just slide all the way back to the beginning. And I think she picked up exactly, I mean, she had the 24 hours out, and she was just where she was, scooting across the bed, sitting up, standing straight as opposed to hunched over. I mean, so much more strength in, I mean, I know it's still so weak, but it's still so much more than the week, you know, than the weekend before, than within the week before. She's becoming more stable, but she does need 24-hour care. It's a matter of weeks or months to figure out where her strength will plateau and what kind of, you know, where she'll be. And I wouldn't want to predict that at this point. It could, the range is wide and the possibilities are wide. Thank you, beloved.
So for the meantime, the funeral plans have been put away.
It was very beautifully crafted, and the core message was that, you know, if I'm dying, I don't want heroics, and I want, you know, I want to be respected, and I want to be, I want to stay home as much as is possible. And she just said, you know, hold yourself in unconditional love, hold the community in unconditional love, hold the world in unconditional love, and hold me in unconditional love. You know, kind of like stay true to message. And I think it was really a message from her to us to be taking care of ourselves and to let her go when it's time to let her go.
Before she fell ill, Eileen Caddy felt the community still had an important message for the whole world.
They're very business-like at the moment, and it's good. I'm glad they're business-like, because I'm not a businesswoman. So I feel that they're doing their stuff and I'm doing my stuff quietly, learning to be still. Some of them go to the sanctuary and they have a time of stillness there. Some of them do it at home. It doesn't matter where you are. The thing is, you have to learn to be still. And that's the difficult part, believe it or not. Everybody's so busy being busy that they find it very difficult to be still.
You can find out more about the Findhorn community by visiting channel4.com/believe. Next tonight, Dr. David Starkey brings the first series of his mammoth project to an end with the death of a dynasty, the medieval monarchs.
This was music stripped down to its plain, urgent necessities. He liberated popular music from the humdrum, the simplistic, and the trite.
Night and day.
Howard Goodall reveals the genius behind the 20th century greats. Saturday at 7 on 4.
Recycled newspapers can be...
Last train.
Not so bad.
Last train.
Not so bad at all.
Bacardi, welcome to the Latin Quarter.
The new fragrance for men from Lacoste.
Since the talkies began, British cinema goers have watched over 60,000 films. Everyone has an opinion of what is the best movie ever made, but for the very first time, we present the 100 most successful films ever. The films British audiences went to see. The biggest box office smashes. Find out what is the ultimate film. Start Saturday at 9 on 4.
Porn, a family business at 2:35. There's a bondage party going down. First and 4 sex scenes from the start. Love on the rocks with the film Presque Rien.